How many war crimes does a country have to commit before we accuse them of committing war crimes? I feel like everyone is getting so hung up on the semantics of it. But like when you look at the facts, you have 165 children and they were aged between 7 and 12 and they were at school on a Saturday, which is when they go to school, and they were killed.
Depending on what you're watching, there's a different term for this. In fact, within the US administration, someone in the cabinet says it's a war, someone says it's not. President Trump refers to it as a war, then suddenly Pete Hegseth says it's not a war.
By any reasonable definition, this is a war. Of course, in the US, there's a technical aspect to that because Congress has the power to declare war, which is why they equivocate a little bit when asked directly whether it's a war because they don't have authorization from Congress. But for any practical purposes, when you're bombing a country nonstop for nearly a week now, it's hard to think of that as anything other than a war. But there's a big buildup. I mean, this is the biggest buildup of U.S. forces since the invasion of Iraq in 2003. The Pentagon claims that the first day was actually even heavier bombing on Iran than there was in Iraq on the first day.
With all of that, within the first few hours of the campaign, you bombed a fucking school. And no one, imagine 160 Israeli school children dead. We would have had 2-page spread with the story of each girl everywhere, written what she liked. She liked eating gems. She drank chocolate milkshake or whatever. We'd know the details and human stories of all those girls.
There's not even a face.
There's not even a face to the dead people.
Stephen Miller's utterances that, after every such conflict or war crime, when he was asked about the girls, the children being murdered in that, he said this is not a politically correct war. So he did not say we didn't do it.
This isn't new just right now with the Trump administration. You see from the beginning of the second Trump term, and even to a certain extent in the first term, this idea that the United States doesn't really have to go by global norms. America first. America does it alone. Who cares about the United Nations? Who cares about international law? Pete Hegseth said, quote, we don't want stupid rules of engagement.
Two old German archaic products are alive in two democracies of the world. Homeopathy in India and Nazism in US. Germans have let it go, both of them. But
not sure if Germans have let Nazism go.
Is there any protocol or established norm of attacking a vessel in these circumstances?
There is a precedent for this. In international law, what we see in maritime law, what we see is when there's a state of conflict or hostilities between two countries, all military targets are fair game. I think India will be very guarded in its statements because, so a few things. One is we don't actually know all the details of what happened. From the video that the Americans have released, we assume it's a submarine, we assume it's a torpedo from a submarine that hit it. But beyond that, we don't have clear data. The second is obviously the political sensitivities around this. India's been very wary, I think it's safe to say, of upsetting the United States and getting the attention of Donald Trump for all the wrong reasons, I think.
And I didn't think so quickly we'd see an Iran war with even a bigger joker than Bush. He's made Bush look good.
He makes Bush look decent. अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to a wonderful spring day. Well, not welcome to the spring day. Welcome to Hafta from a lovely spring day in Delhi. But all is not lovely across the world, as we shall find out in the course of this discussion. Today in the studio, we have our editorial director, Manisha Pande. Hi,
Hello.
Manisha.
Hello.
Shardool Katyayan.
hi.
With a haircut. Hi, Shardool.
No, not a haircut, just a shave.
Just a shave. And joining us online is our wonderful CEO, Jayashree.
CEO. Wow.
We've decided
That's a step up.
Chief Engagement Officer.
No, it was Chief Community Officer.
Oh, right, CCO.
I'm happy to be CEO of Newslaundry. It's fine.
Right. And also joining us is Shaun Tandon. Welcome, Shaun. Thank you for making the time.
Hello. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Iran's bombing of that area. What are the dangers that all of us face, including the US, economically? And secondly, just this one bit of news that's been discussed on late night TV and a few hosts in the US media as well, that does US have the ammunition supply to actually
I think with any poll that we see here, there's not massive support for conflict. And it's interesting because historically, Trump has run on this platform, even saying in his first term, I didn't really do as much. There's always been this way that Trump, until extremely recently, until last weekend, was marketed himself as more of a peace candidate, quote unquote. The thing to look with the polls, though, there's a question of whether people oppose it. There's a question of how much they're actually thinking about it. There have been 6 U.S. deaths so far, and despite the great destruction in the region, I'm not sure that it's obviously on people's radars. We need to wait and see whether it does have a major impact. It's one thing if people are asked in a poll, theoretically, do you oppose it, or do you support it? It's another thing whether people say, hey, this is changing my worldview, this is changing my view on the president, and changing whether I'm going to actually vote in it.
You sink a ship that is coming in from naval exercises in international waters, and it is supposed to be an unarmed ship because it was participating in these exercises, and then you sink it. And when you shoot a ship, you're under obligation under the Geneva Convention to rescue these sailors, and they did nothing. They just scooted. I mean, I feel like this even eclipses some of the worst things that we saw in World War II, because to shoot an unarmed ship and then you leave them to die. And then again, I'm seeing all the arguments made in the press about how, yes, but a submarine is not intended to be held by those standards of save and rescue, and how can we even accept that as a fact?
I just want to tell everybody we have a new subscription discount. As you know, we don't take any advertisements. We are purely subscription-based news platform. So, Mitro, our dear leader has come up with a genius plan, which is India is the motherland and Israel is the fatherland of, I don't know what, but something.
Of Jews in India, actually. Very wrongfully, he was told by people.
Of Jews in India, but
that's what he was trying to say, that the Jews in India, Israel is their fatherland and motherland is India.
So for ad-free public interest journalism, taking a cue from the great leader, Newslaundry is the fatherland and Newsminute is the motherland. And in the father-motherland discount, if you flash this QR code, scan this QR code that's flashing, or click in the link in the show notes below, you can avail a 15% discount on a joint Fatherland, Motherland subscription, which is Newslaundry, Newsminute subscription. So do support ad-free independent journalism, public interest journalism, and you know how important it is in India right now with what's happening. And there is a Sena project, bulldozers in Kashi. Here's a QR code for that and a link. My former boss from News Track, Alpana, will be heading this project.
Yes, he's already filed 2 stories that shall be out soon.
The only difference between Iran and Ukraine and everybody else is the color of our skin. They don't care about if you're Latin. He's talking about invading.
Yeah, I think the
Cuba.
racism angle is, I mean, it's obvious. And the risk of having right-wing nutters in charge now is clear in the US and in India. Like, for example, if you saw Pete Hegseth's address on how he's renaming the badges of the Boy Scouts because Boy Scouts have become too inclusive. It's like the level of stuff, and it's India. Basically, I think India and US have so much in common that you have these nutters who believe in the kind of stuff that Shardul just mentioned, and they're using that for policy. They're using that to shape, how children should grow up, what they should believe at such a young age, which is completely anti-science and complete nuts. And I think India is so similar to that. Like someone like Pete Hegseth should not be in the position he's at. You see the kind of bombastic and childish statements he makes as someone who has at his disposal an arsenal the size that he does, as do many of our lawmakers.
We are honored to come before your presence today, lifting up the arms of our president. We pray for your continued blessing and favor to rest upon him. We pray for wisdom from heaven to flood his heart, his mind, and Lord, you will guide him in these challenging times that we're facing today. I pray for your grace and your protection over him. I pray for your grace and protection over our troops.
ये पहली बार मेरे देश में हो रहा है, ऐसा नहीं है. ये देश वो देश है जिसमें महाभारत में संजय ने बैठ के धृतराष्ट्र को युद्ध में क्या हो रहा था बोल रहा था. तो इसका मतलब क्या है? टेक्नोलॉजी था, इंटरनेट था, सैटेलाइट थी. संजय के आंख से कैसे दिख सकता वो? उसका मतलब टेक्नोलॉजी थी. मिडिल में क्या हुआ नहीं हुआ बहुत कुछ चेंज हुई किंतु उस जमाने में इस देश में वो टेक्नोलॉजी थी.
But I think Iran doesn't even want to shape the order for the world. It was shaping an order for its own country. And I think much of the repulsion that we feel, and I've felt that, I mean, usually it's Jayashree ranting about liberal media.
Yeah?
But last
Hello.
1 week, I
How
have
dare
felt
you.
so repulsed by so-called Western press, even The Daily Show, where Jon Stewart came and cracked a joke about Ayatollah and the virgins are going to be upset. I was like, dude, I don't care about liberalism, feminism, your values, because of the pure brazen nakedness with which you've gone in. You've bombarded a school with all your high-tech spyware. You know, we have, I don't know, we can hack into your traffic signals and we can figure out where Ayatollah was. With all of that, within the first few hours of the campaign, you bombed a fucking school.
Can you tell us technically what happened with the sinking of this Iranian vessel, which then the Sri Lankan, I think, Navy went and did the rescue operations? And what does it mean for us now? What kind of statement is India supposed to make?
Yeah, so the whole point of submarines, especially these sort of nuclear powered submarines, is that they remain submerged for long periods of time. And so they're incredibly hard to detect in the open seas. So typically, there are two ways you detect them. One is you use so-called sound surveillance nets or sonar buoys, and you plant them in various parts of the ocean, basically trying to listen in to essentially largely the propeller noises from submarines. And you have a pre-existing library of data of the sounds that submarines make, and you make an assessment based on that. You know, the submarine was here at this point of time. Now, India doesn't have a whole lot of these. In fact, the country that ironically has the widest sources nets around the world is the United States. The second way you could detect them is if your own ships or aircraft are out there. So your own aircraft can drop, for example, maritime patrol aircraft can drop sonar buoys into the water, and your own ships can carry a tau-direct sonar, which is basically a sonar that is dipped into the water with a wire and can listen in to try and detect submarines. Now, those last two things you really only do when you have a suspicion. And the reality is that India has no particular reason to go around hunting for an American submarine, right? With your limited resources, you're trying to look for Chinese or Pakistani submarines, even at peacetime.
Also, they at no point really condemned the strikes, right? I think.
Even for the signing of the book, Vikram Misri went to sign the book. And we haven't yet really officially offered our condolences for the Ayatollah and his family. Or even the sailors.
Yeah.
Even the sailors, we haven't really said that since they were our guests. I mean, this whole thing of whether we could have done something or not is a separate thing. But as a gesture of you were here with us and now we're sorry that this happened, even that hasn't gone out. So clearly we're really upset about.
I just want to push one story behind the paywall that we released, which is Rahul Kanwal's new NDTV for New India by Furqan Amin. This was put out this week, Manisha, or last week?
Last week.
And this report is behind the paywall. It tells you about how the new NDTV is so different from the old one, how it's running. We have spoken to several insiders. I do hope you will enjoy it. And because we do not take any advertising, all our journalism based on subscriptions. There's a QR code here. Subscribe, pay to keep news free. And also, like I said, we have the fatherland discount 15%, which you can avail of. What is the kind of technology that is being used from both sides? Now, if Iran was, as Trump said, 2 weeks away from getting a nuclear bomb, I would assume their conventional weapons would be a little more sophisticated than they are. And what is the level of sophistication that they actually are using right now?
Sure. So let's step back and look at Iran's conventional forces. So Iran's been under more or less continuous sanctions and all sorts of restrictions since the revolution in 79. And in the Shah's time, they had a real air force with fixed-wing aircraft, including American F-14 Tomcats and stuff like that. And basically because Iran hasn't had much of an air force since then, what it's been forced to do is, and as well as a large navy, what it's been forced to do is innovate. So for example, in the Strait of Hormuz, around the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman, it uses a lot of fast attack boats with missiles, rockets, and the likes. Similarly, because it's the size of its air force is limited, it's aging or non-existent, it's focused a great deal on missiles. So it's focused on mostly short-range and medium-range ballistic missiles. There have been stories about, potentially longer-range, intermediate-range, and intercontinental ballistic missiles, but that's just stories. So it's focused on these missiles. It's also developed, a whole bunch of drones, including the Shahid, which they are apparently manufacturing and stocking in the tens of thousands. Shahids are fairly simple drones. Cost estimates vary. I've seen any figures from 20 to 50,000. They don't use a jet engine. They use a simple internal combustion engine, propeller-driven aircraft. The range may be somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 kilometers, theoretically. But it depends on the flight profile and the likes. And its warhead is really small. Its warhead is like something like 40 or 50 kilos, right? So not terribly destructive either. So that's one thing. But what they do have there is numbers. Second,
when you say what they do have is numbers, that they have so many hundreds of thousands, they could go on and on launching these all over the Middle East for the next months.
Yes, that's the idea that the Iranians have. What they've done is they've built massive underground facilities to store the drones as well as ballistic missiles and cruise missiles.
Basically raise the cost of war for the adversary.
What does this mean for us domestically in the sense of Mr. Modi? I mean, the one thing that is pretty clear, even with the most hardcore mainstream media, that the Vishwaguru entire, hot air balloon has been burst once and for all.
Yes.
No one is asking India anything. We are not a significant player. We are not the Ronaldo of the team. Hell, we are not even the bench.
Yeah. We're not even on bench.
We are in the stadium watching the game. That is who we are, and that is the economic reality of India.
No, but I think more than sitting in the stadium, I feel like we've become a punchline of a joke, because 48 hours before they assassinated the Ayatollah, Modi was in Israel performing a puja at the Holocaust Museum, getting a made-up award from the Knesset, making that speech. And it's just, the optics of it are so bad. I mean, even if you set aside the entire thing of India always saying that it's the guardian of the Indian Ocean, which clearly is not true, then when this conflict breaks out, they can't bring themselves to criticize the US-Israeli strikes, but then they sort of very belatedly express condolences over the Ayatollah's death, but only through, as Manisha mentioned, a sign that Vikram Misri put in the condolence book. Also, I think The Wire had reported that they had sent out cables to Indian missions across the world, to Indian ambassadors, saying that they shouldn't sign any Iranian condolence book until the MEA gave them permission to do so. So I just feel, and then also the very delayed response to the sinking of the Iranian vessel, it just feels that we are one step behind, but we are one step behind in the most clownish of ways. And it just doesn't look good.
We're waiting for a cue. What's the right thing to do? And also, I think one thing that, I don't know who advises Mr. Modi, whether he even listens to advice, is that whenever, and this is something that when we were young in school and college, there was always this one buffoon in your group who'd laugh at the wrong time. And the one constant line we had for him was, what was the punchline? Unless you can define the punchline, don't fucking laugh.
Yeah.
You only laugh at a punchline. Only a buffoon laughs all the time. So you have to ask yourself, saffron, it's not a punchline.
Oh.
You don't start cackling at that joke. It's not a joke. Say, oh, nice, what a lovely coincidence. You just laugh at anything for nothing. It just is so foolish. It makes you look bad.
You see what you want? Look at the color.
Everything is okay? Yeah. Enjoyed Mumbai? I love it. The body went for jogging? Yeah, you know everything.
And since soft power is all we have, fix that only, na? Hard power baad mein fix kar lenge.
I think I've given this recommendation of the 100th time, but honestly, at this point, and even news anchors should watch this 2-part documentary in Frontline Bitter Rivals, because Anjana just yesterday said that
I saw.
From 1970.
Anjana.
अगर इस खबर को देखें, क्योंकि कैरोलाइन लेविट ये दावा कर रही हैं, ये बहुत गंभीर तरीके से इस्तेमाल होगा. अगर ईरान पता नहीं परोक्ष रूप से सामने आकर इसको स्वीकारेगा नहीं या नहीं करेगा, लेकिन कैरोलाइन लेविट यह दावा कर रही है कि ईरानी आतंकियों ने 66 अमेरिकियों को बंधक बना लिया है तेहरान में और अब अमेरिका पर भी जबरदस्त दबाव होगा।
अंजना मैं एक चीज स्पष्ट कर दूं, 1979 के बाद से तेहरान के अंदर अमेरिका का दूतावास ही नहीं है और 1979 की उस घटना का कैरोलाइन लेविट जिक्र कर रही थी कि किस तरीके से अमेरिका को आतंकित किया गया था, अमेरिकी दूतावास पर हमला किया गया था और उसके बाद उन्हें वहां कैनेडियन हाई कमीशन में और स्विस एम्बेसी के अंदर शरण लेनी पड़ी थी।
I kind of feel bad also because I feel like at this point it's just that 24/7. I mean, the Indian coverage is also so I've been watching Al Jazeera, France 24, CNN, BBC. None of them are doing this breaking. Why do Indian news channels feel like they have to sit in Delhi and break news on a war that's happening so far? Every 2 minutes there's a siren, breaking. You're bound to make mistakes with this formula.
Oh my God, this
Why
siren.
do you have to do
what
it?
did Rahul Shivshankar say? He says that even if he posts misinformation,
He's just a conduit.
He's a conduit
Yeah,
of
he's a
all
conduit.
this.
Oh, he's a conduit of something, but that's not information.
Indian news is uniquely weird in this
No,
whole...
also, and I think in Pakistan, very rich feudal lords had this one person, they still do actually, I don't know if it's still there right now, but till 10-15 years ago it existed. That guy was basically bonded labor. His job, it was like a jester to just perform for the master.
Oh, old times.
He's humiliated, he's treated like such shit, but he has stripped himself of all dignity. So he's okay with that and he's happy with that existence because it's either that or living elsewhere. I think our news anchors have become like that. There's no shame. Like what Rahul Shivshankar said, 15 years ago, someone would be self-conscious or ashamed of that.
Yeah.
Or Anjana Kashyap would come out and say, dude, that was a big blooper. I apologize. I'll be more careful. It doesn't matter because the expectation is not any sort of respect from your audience. I should have this job. I should get the kind of perks I do. And I will perform for my masters. I have no identity. I have no ego. I have no respect. And they're okay with that.
बस मुफ्त में इतना ही मिलेगा. For the full uncut podcast, subscribe to Newslaundry and pay to keep news free. The best way to listen to The Hafta and indeed all our podcasts is through the Newslaundry app. You can download the app by clicking on the links given in the show notes. So do download our app and get the best podcast experience. And also pay for news and support a new news media ecosystem that Newslaundry is trying to encourage, where we are accountable to you because we run on contributions that you make. We don't take government ads, we don't take corporations ads, so that news serves the public, because when the public pays, the public is served. Subscribe to Newslaundry, click on the link in the show notes below and proudly say, I pay to keep news free.